As of 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sophie Cunningham's Adidas shoes are completely sold out in both men and women's sizes. She's a super.
Sophie Cunningham's shoes sold out. Both the men's and women's sizes. Gone. Not in a few days, fast. And if you think that's just a sneaker story, you're missing the bigger picture entirely. Because what that sellout actually reveals is something the people running the WNBA are not ready to face. The fans have shown up. The money is here. The stars are rising on their own, and the woman at the top may no longer be the right person to handle any of it. This is not about one bad call, one angry player, or one rough week. This is about whether the WNBA has quietly outgrown its own commissioner, and what happens to a league when the job changes faster than the person holding it. Before we get into the crisis, you have to understand what Cathy Engelbert actually walked into. When she took over as WNBA Commissioner, she described inheriting a business with, and these are her words, no money, no scale, no capability. Think about that for a second. No financial foundation, no infrastructure, no real leverage. And somehow, she still had to keep the lights on. What followed was genuinely difficult. A global pandemic hit almost immediately. Social unrest swept the country, and the league became one of the most politically visible sports organizations in America. She had to negotiate collective bargaining agreements, not once, but twice, each time with players who were increasingly aware of their value and increasingly unwilling to accept less than they deserved. None of that was easy. None of that was guaranteed to go well. And if you are being intellectually honest, you have to admit that the WNBA did not collapse. It grew. Bigger television deals, private jets for players, larger contracts, more national attention than the league had ever seen. Whatever you think about what is happening right now, Engelbert did not preside over a failure. She presided over a transformation. The problem is what that transformation created, because the league that exists today is almost unrecognizable from the one she took over. And that is precisely where the trouble starts. Here's something sports history keeps proving over and over again. The skills that help an organization survive are almost never the same skills required to help it dominate. A turnaround specialist can stabilize a sinking ship and still have no idea how to navigate open water at full speed. A startup leader can keep a company alive through the lean years and completely lose the room once venture capital arrives and expectations explode. The WNBA is no longer a league fighting to exist. It is a league fighting to maximize a once-in-a-generation opportunity. And those are two entirely different fights. More than 20 stakeholders, owners, team executives, players, and industry insiders spoke to ESPN. They did it anonymously. And what they said was not that Engelbert destroyed the business.
As courtesy of Alyssa Philippou, this is an article on ESPN. It says conversations with more than 20 stakeholders in and around the WNBA offer a general belief that for as much business growth as Cathy Engelbert has overseen, she's not the right.
That would actually be easier to argue against. What they said was more damaging. They said she may not be the right person to navigate what the league now demands. That distinction matters enormously, because it means even her defenders are starting to question her future. The credit is being given, the doubt is coming right behind it. And once that combination takes hold across multiple power centers inside a league, owners, players, broadcasters, sponsors, a commissioner's position can deteriorate faster than anyone expects. One team executive reportedly told ESPN, "Here we are with all this stuff that's happened, and at different points it's felt like, where are you?" 3 words, where are you? That is not a question about one decision or one controversy. That is a question about presence, judgment, and institutional confidence. And when the people investing money into a league start asking that question in unison, a press release will not fix it. Nobody in professional sports in recent memory has created a ripple effect quite like Caitlin Clark. She arrived in the WNBA with college numbers that defied logic, a fan base that crossed demographics that the league had never reached before, and a commercial profile that made sponsors pay attention in ways they simply had not before. She was not just a basketball player, she was an event, and the WNBA was not ready for her.
Engelbert actually admitted it.
She acknowledged publicly that the league had not fully anticipated the scale of what Clark would bring. Now, you can be generous and call that honesty. You can say no projection could have fully captured the magnitude of that surge. But you can also read it as a confession that the league's infrastructure, officiating, security, media management, operational systems, was not built for the moment it was walking into. And that is a problem, because Clark's audience was not a secret. Her college ratings were historic. Her commercial pull was visible before she ever played a professional game. The direction was clear, even if the exact magnitude was uncertain. Preparation is one of the core responsibilities of a commissioner. Saying you were surprised is one thing. Being surprised when the evidence was right in front of you is something else entirely. Clark's arrival did not just bring new fans, it brought new scrutiny. Every game involving her was dissected. Every physical play became national news. Every disciplinary decision got filtered through arguments about race, media bias, gender politics, and institutional favoritism. Some of those arguments were sincere. Others were purely opportunistic. But the commissioner does not get to choose the environment she operates in. She only gets to choose how she responds to it. And that is where things started to unravel. During a game last month, Alyssa Thomas made contact with Caitlin Clark's throat. You can debate whether it was intentional. Thomas said it was a complete accident. What is not debatable is what happened next. The original officiating crew missed it. The league later reviewed the play and upgraded it to a flagrant 2 foul. Thomas received a 1-game suspension, and what should have been a straightforward disciplinary process turned into one of the most chaotic public moments the WNBA has seen in years. Thomas said after the decision that she had received harassment and death threats. She also criticized Engelbert directly, calling out the commissioner's silence during the firestorm. Meanwhile, the fans who had been defending Clark felt the punishment came too late and only arrived because of public pressure. Neither side felt the process had been clean, transparent, or decisive. That is a governance failure, regardless of whether the final punishment was technically correct. But the detail that truly complicated Engelbert's position was the report that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver had advised her that Thomas should be suspended. If that reporting is accurate, and it has not been denied with any force, then the optics are genuinely brutal. It creates the appearance that the WNBA commissioner needed outside direction before acting decisively on the biggest controversy of her season. Her defenders will say seeking advice from a related league is a responsible leadership. Her critics will say the person in charge should not need to be told what the obvious call is. And here's the part that matters most. Only one of those interpretations fits the narrative already surrounding her. Perception becomes reality fast when trust is already eroding. A group of congressional Republicans sent Engelbert a letter. They demanded accountability for multiple incidents involving Clark. And the moment that letter was sent, the WNBA's leadership problem moved into entirely different territory. When elected officials enter the conversation, the commissioner is no longer managing basketball. She is managing a political symbol. Clark had already become a lightning rod far beyond the sport itself. People who had never watched a WNBA game were now following her treatment, analyzing referee decisions, and interpreting every incident through the lens of whatever culture war argument they were already invested in. That is not something Engelbert created, but it is something she had to manage. And managing it requires the kind of visible, structured, policy-driven response that leaves no room for the appearance of favoritism or silence. Decisions in that environment have to be fast, explained, and rooted in a standard that clearly applies across the entire league. When punishment arrives late and only after massive public backlash, even the correct decision starts to look corrupted. The optics consume the substance. Critics on every side claim the outcome proves whatever they already believed, and the commissioner, instead of being seen as the steady hand, becomes another variable in an argument that has long since left the basketball court.
This is also the moment where Engelbert's admission about not being prepared for Clark came back to haunt her. Because if the league was not ready operationally and then responded to the resulting controversy slowly and inconsistently, the conclusion many stakeholders begin to draw is not just that the league made mistakes. The conclusion is that the person at the top lacked the foresight to prevent them and the instincts to contain them once they erupted.
More than 20 people, owners, team executives, players, industry insiders, all speaking anonymously to ESPN, all arriving at roughly the same place. They are not saying Engelbert failed the business. They are saying something that is actually harder to argue with. They are saying she may not be equipped for what the league has become. And that collection of voices is what makes this situation different from ordinary commissioner criticism. Players complain about commissioners regularly. It is part of the labor dynamic. If it were only players expressing frustration, the league could absorb that tension as normal. But when owners start expressing the same doubts, the people who have financial stakes in the league's direction, the political math changes. One quote reportedly captures the mood inside several circles. "She got us financially set up the right way. It's the other pieces we're talking about." Sit with that for a moment. Even the defense of her begins with a but. The financial work is acknowledged. Everything beyond it is in question. Crisis communication, response time during controversies, relationship management with players who feel unprotected, officiation decisions, visibility during moments when the league needed a face and a voice. These are not minor supplemental skills for a commissioner. They are the job. A crisis and reputation management specialist quoted in the reporting said something that should concern everyone around Engelbert. He said the hole had gotten so deep that he did not know what she to do. Think about what that means coming from someone whose entire profession is finding paths out of institutional crises. When the person whose job is to identify the corrective move cannot see one, the organization is typically looking at a transition, not a rehabilitation. Engelbert deflected questions about her future when ESPN approached her directly. Her response was to emphasize execution, the success of the 30th season, her love for the league, the team built around her at the WNBA. She said, essentially, do not worry about her. That is the standard playbook for an executive who is not going to participate in speculation about their own removal. And there is a legitimate argument for that posture. Commissioners cannot spend every press conference answering whether they are about to be fired. Engaging publicly with those questions only amplifies the instability. Staying focused on the work can project discipline and confidence when chaos is pulling at you from every direction. But here's where that strategy breaks down in this particular situation. The people questioning her future are not worried about her personally, they are worried about the league. And responding to institutional concerns with personal reassurance, "I love this league, don't worry about me," does not actually address what the stakeholders are saying. It sounds like avoidance when the questions involve officiation standards, player safety, labor relations, and public visibility. The strongest response would not have been a declaration that everything is fine. It would have been a measurable plan. What specific changes are being made to the officiation review process? How quickly will dangerous plays be evaluated going forward? Who communicates with players when credible threats are received? What is the standard for commissioner visibility during a league-wide controversy? Without answers to questions like those, optimism becomes a slogan rather than evidence. There is speculation, and it is speculation, nothing confirmed, that Engelbert may have been kept in place specifically to see the collective bargaining negotiations through to completion. The logic would make sense strategically. Removing a commissioner in the middle of labor talks creates uncertainty at the exact moment the league needs continuity and leverage. Waiting until an agreement is reached preserves stability and then allows a new era to begin without unresolved contractual baggage. Whether that is what happened or not, the question of timing matters, because the transition itself carries real risk.
A new commissioner inherits the same divided fan base, the same officiation complaints, the same political pressure, and the same online hostility. Changing the name at the top does not automatically fix the referees, calm the discourse, or resolve the labor expectations that have been set by a historic CBA. Engelbert also carries 7 years of institutional knowledge, relationships with owners, broadcasters, sponsors, and the NBA that cannot be transferred overnight. Decision-makers would have to believe the cost of keeping her now exceeds the cost of losing all of that. That is not a simple calculation.
But Sophie Cunningham's shoes selling out tells you something important about where this league is right now. Fans are not waiting for the league to manufacture stars anymore. They are building them on their own, attaching to personalities organically, spending money on players they have decided to care about. That is an extraordinary opportunity. It is also a test of whether the leadership structure can keep up. Viral popularity has to be converted into durable commercial value. Multiple stars have to be developed simultaneously without any single fan base feeling favored or ignored. Every controversy has to be managed in a way that separates basketball governance from the emotional storm that now surrounds every major incident. Those are not marketing problems. Those are leadership problems. And the 20-plus stakeholders who spoke to ESPN clearly believe the current leadership is not solving them. The WNBA's 30th season was supposed to be a celebration. 3 decades of survival, new stars, historic growth, the kind of feel-good sports narrative that writes itself. Instead, it became a referendum on whether the person running the league can handle the version of it that now exists. And the uncomfortable truth is that you can build something extraordinary and still not be the right person to take it to the next level. That is not a failure. That is just how growth works sometimes. The question now is not whether Engelbert loves the league. Nobody is doubting that. The question is whether the league, in its current form, with its current scale and its current storms, needs something she cannot provide. And when 20 people who have skin in the game all start arriving at the same answer, the decision rarely stays in question for long.